Well, you probably found this video because you're looking for more information on Airdrie, Alberta. Well, you came to the right place because today we're going to talk about some of my top pros and cons of living right here in Airdrie, Alberta. Now, my name is Brad Walker. I'm a local realtor here in Airdrie. Semi-biased because I like living in Airdrie. Of course, I think it's a great place to live and to raise your family, so I will highlight some of the great aspects of living here, but I also am going to go over some of the cons that might be deal breakers for you when you're deciding if it would be a good fit. Now we're going to start with the pros and then move into the cons later in the video, and remember, being a local realtor here, if you have any questions at all, or if you're planning to make a move here, reach out right away and we can have a chat about your plans. Alright, so starting with pro number one, and that's our proximity to the bigger city of Calgary. Now I put this as number one because it's a huge reason why a lot of people move here to Airdrie. Whether you're moving from another province or moving from Calgary to get out of the big city, a lot of people prefer Airdrie as it gets them out of the major city center while still just being 10 to 15 minutes away. Now for those that work in Calgary, downtown for example, you only be about a 30 to 40 minute drive to work from Airdrie. It actually ends up being less of a commute than even some places within Calgary due to the traffic in the city. And even if you don't work downtown, for example, we have a lot of airport workers here in Airdrie since we're only about 20 minutes from the Calgary International Airport. And of course, this isn't just nice for your work commute, but there's a lot of benefits to having the big city right there. Things like major sporting events or concerts, nightlife, major universities, IKEA, things that you'll never find inside a small city like Airdrie. You still have just a short drive away in Calgary. So that's pro number one. Now moving on to the second pro of living in Airdrie, and that is the ease of getting around our city. Now Airdrie from a physical size standpoint is not very big, which means it's really quick to get from one side to the other. Now from any point in Airdrie, you're not going to be more than 15 minutes to get to where you're going, and that would be a corner to corner trip in the city. So more realistically, you're going to be within about 10 minutes of most things in the city, no matter where you are. And if you're more central city, you're going to be even closer, which is really great for those day-to-day errands or driving the kids to school or other activities or things like that. For those errands, the shopping areas in the city are pretty well positioned, so you're usually very close to where you're going to get groceries and other things like that. And not only is it easy to get around the city quickly, but with Highway 2 running right through the middle of the city, it's always quick to jump on the highway to head to Cross Iron Mills Malls just a few minutes away, or into Calgary, no matter where your house is in Airdrie. So overall, to drive around, you're going to get to where you're going very quickly. And even if you don't drive, we do have a small bus system that can take you various locations throughout Airdrie, or in the summertime, we've got a bunch of rentable e-scooters spread around the city that you can jump on and zip to where you're going for just a few bucks. So our pro number two is the ease of getting around Airdrie, which brings us now to our pro number three, which is our low crime rate in the city. Now you might have seen me mention this in other videos on my channel as well, but for a city that really prides itself on being good for families, this is definitely a good pro to see here in Airdrie. Now if we look at the top 10 cities in Alberta by population size, Airdrie has the lowest overall crime rate, and by quite a lot when we compare it to a couple of the cities of the same size. So looking at this list, these are the total crimes in each city per 1,000 people, and the cities are ranked from highest to lowest population. So you can see Airdrie is the fifth biggest city in Alberta with a population of about 85,000 people, but with a crime rate of 3.4 per 1,000 people. That's the lowest on this list, and in some cases it's a pretty substantial difference. For example, if we look at the two cities with the closest population to Airdrie, Red Deer is at 10.9 per 1,000 people and Lethbridge is at 9.8 per 1,000 people. So not really much more to add here as the numbers lay it out really well. Airdrie is just a safe place to live. So now looking at pro number four, which is how family friendly Airdrie is. And honestly, I thought about leaving this one out because it's become pretty cliche at this point with Airdrie being the best family community, but I had to put it in just because it is true. Now Airdrie really has been built with families in mind, from the styles of homes here to the amount of playgrounds. It was all built to bring more families into the city. In every neighborhood that's built, there are plenty of playgrounds and walking paths to get outside and enjoy the city with your family, and there's a good chance that the home you move to will be probably within walking distance to where the kids are going to school. And even down to things like the speed limits here in Airdrie, residential streets throughout the entire city have a 30 km/h speed limit as compared to the 40 to 50 km/h speed limit you'll see in most other towns and cities. Now this is done to make sure kids and pedestrians in these residential areas are kept safe as they're outside and playing and walking about the city. Now, it can take a bit of getting used to that slower speed limit if you're not used to it, but I know you're going to come to appreciate the slow speeds in front of your house. And now moving on to our fifth pro for living in Airdrie, which is the size of our city in general. Now, I know I spoke about the physical size of how easy Airdrie is to get to where you're going, but now I'm going to talk more about population size and amenities. Now, as the city grows and we get more and more people, that means we see more diversity in the people, in the restaurants, in the shopping options, and everything like that we have inside the city. And now at 85,000 people, we've got a much better variety of shopping and dining options here than we had when we were just at 60 or 70,000 people. And since we're still a very small city in comparison to Calgary, which is well over 1 million people, we'll be able to keep adding to the population and amenities while still staying a nice small city. So you have everything you need here on a day-to-day basis, and with more local shops and variety popping up every day, there are a few things now that you really do need to go to Calgary for. So in its current size, and even as it grows more, Airdrie is a great sized city to have everything you need while being outside of Calgary. Alright, now on to our sixth and final pro for living here in Airdrie, and that is it's still the cheapest of all the 4 towns directly around Calgary in terms of cost of housing. Now, if we compare Airdrie to Chestermere, Okotoks, and Cochrane, Airdrie is still the cheapest option for housing out of all 4 of them. As you can see here, Chestermere is currently at a benchmark price of $633,700. Okotoks has that benchmark price of $565,400. Cochrane's got their benchmark price right now at $540,400. And Airdrie, as you can see, out of all of them, has the lowest overall benchmark price of $521,800. Now, in recent years, Airdrie has caught up a little bit, and this spread used to be quite a bit bigger than this. But what has always got me about this stat is that out of these 4 towns, Airdrie is the biggest, has the most amenities, and it's the closest to the fort to Calgary, but it is still the cheapest one for your housing. So if you're looking for housing value, you're definitely going to be able to find that here in Airdrie. All right, well, now we've gone through all the good stuff. Let's get into a few of the cons about living here in our city. So starting us off with con number 1, and that is the lagging infrastructure here in the city. Since we've seen so much population growth over the last decade or two, there are some things that we could use from an infrastructure standpoint that we don't quite have yet. For example, we currently just have 1 rec center for the whole city. Now, it is a huge facility with a ton of recreation options, but now at over 80,000 people, we definitely need another one in the city. Now, the good news is that one is being built in the southwest corner of Airdrie. Construction will hopefully start this year, and it should be open around 2026 or 2027. Now, this is going to be a huge addition to the city, and especially to all those people in the southwest of Airdrie. Another example is our library. Our current library is pretty small for the city and often gets very busy. But like the rec center, one is being built and it should be ready probably next year. Now, if you want to learn more about that library, you can watch this video up in one of these corners here that we made about it right as construction was starting. Now, ultimately, the right infrastructure pieces are coming, but with all of our population growth, it would have been great to see these things maybe 2 or 3 years earlier than they're going to be coming. But one thing you will notice if you're looking at other areas of Alberta is since all of these areas have seen big population growth, most of the cities and towns will be kind of lagging behind in their infrastructure at the moment. Now moving on to con number 2, which really could have been a part of con number 1, but I wanted to give it its own category because it's a pretty hot topic around here, and that's the lack of a hospital in Airdrie. Now, this is one that there are no concrete plans for right now, and though not a part of provincial planning, my guess is we won't get a hospital right in Airdrie, but more likely on the north end of Calgary. But who knows when that's going to be? It's all going to depend on costs and actually getting it built and then staffing it. So I'm not sure when we're going to see that, but likely some point in the future. Now, right now, the closest hospital to Airdrie is about 25 minutes away, which is fine for most people. And we do have our 24-hour urgent care here in the city. But if you really want to be close to a hospital, then this is definitely something to consider. Now moving on to con number 3, and that is the lack of character homes and neighborhoods in our city. What you'll find if you've looked at homes online here in Airdrie is that there's not a ton of those really cool character homes or really neat looking neighborhoods here in our city. Now, of course, we do have some older areas and have some really cool looking houses and streets, but since Airdrie has built so rapidly, the majority of the homes are built in the 2000s, which means we don't have as much of the early 1900 builds and the neighborhoods with the massive trees like you're gonna see in the bigger city of Calgary. But if you prefer the newer homes anyway, there's going to be a lot of options for you here. And lastly, con number 4 about living in Airdrie, Alberta is the lack of entertainment options right inside the city. Now this is going to be true for pretty much all small cities or towns because it's hard to have the big sports teams, concert halls, nightclubs, or festivals in a city of this size. So you're going to need to go to Calgary for all of those types of entertainment amenities. Now the nice thing about Airdrie though is that being so close to Calgary, it's not going to be too bad of a drive for you to get to those places for those activities inside of Calgary. All right, well that does it for our pros and cons of living in Airdrie, Alberta here in 2024. My name is Brad Walker, your local Airdrie Realtor. If you have any questions about moving to our city, please reach out to me right away and we'll see you in the next video.